Welcome to lesson 12, and here we're going to see our first plug-in example. We're going to look at the BioInfo example. So let's just look at the user setup process. And user setup process, if I search for user setup process, here I have the info string shown. And as I mentioned earlier, this info string comes from the BioInfo. So if I actually go to the business object, I can follow through and I can see the algorithm. To the type. This is where we have the program running in Java which does the info string. So if I go to that program, this is the program which is doing it. This is the algorithm component which is generated through the wizard, and it creates some basic interface methods that need to be overridden. What we see over here is that we have the info algorithm spot, which we need to implement, and we have the following methods. We have the method, we actually get the set business object. We get as an input the BO, which is going to be used by our business object private property, and we are going to be using the and we're going to be outputting the info string. And it's the invoke where we actually do the work. So what we do is we get the business object which we get from the input, and we find the user setup process entity. So we see the ID, we saw this pattern earlier, and we get the user setup process from the ID by calling get identify. So in other words, we're using a get string, we're getting the user IP, we're using the value of the BO, and we're going to use that BO in order to get the entity. Once we have the entity, we are returning if there's nothing in it, but of course we expect to have one. And then we build a new string builder, and then we have 4 different parts of the string. So the first part of the string is get the description. And over here, what we're doing to get the description, we're getting the description from the type. We're calling get type on the entity, and then going through the language description, and we're adding that, appending it to our string. After that, we're adding the status description, adding a comma, and then we are going to be finding the status, first of all, by creating a new business status ID and calling the entity. Okay, so we're getting the status ID, and once we have the status, we get the entity to give us the status back. And then we're adding the creation date, and the creation date is coming from the method get creation date time, sending it to localized string, and also requested by as well, and then appending it together and outputting that in the invoke. We're setting the invoke string to string, and it's the info string that we are outputting to get info, which is the output of this plugin, and that's basically how it works. It is interesting to compare the input-outputs that we just saw in the Java compared to what we have in config tools. So as we just saw, and looking at the Java docs, we see that the set business object is our input to our plugin, and our output is our get info. And if you look at the corresponding plugin spot, which you see in config tools, there again you see you have your soft parameters. Obviously you can add soft parameters to any plug in, and we have an example like that in Java coming up. But if you look under the hard section, you have the business object as being the input, and the output is showing info. So that corresponds to what we see within the Java.